From a front of house perspective, where you're coming in to visit us for the first time, if you have your cane in your bag or in your rucksack, or it's not clear to us that you have visual impairment. So do you routinely announce that if you were to go to a public space, or do you feel the need to do that, or just so that we can offer as much help or assistance?
I found that in my experience that sometimes you just can't tell. I have an uncle who has a visual impairment, and I was working with him years ago, and he waved something in front of me and said, "Can you tell me what colour that is?" And I was, "What, are you blind?" And I didn't realise he was colourblind, so it's not always obvious to be able to tell whether somebody is visually impaired or not. A lot of the time I would find I'll do a quick assessment myself, and if I need something, I'd ask for it. That's because I know what to ask for.
I suppose in a case where somebody isn't carrying a cane, you're mostly just looking for, as Ken said, those kind of subtle cues, like maybe the person comes through the door but it kind of just stops and it's kind of looking around for a bit. Like in situations like that, you're probably just going to act similar to how you would act to anyone coming into a museum that is kind of just looks a bit lost. You probably, the initial interaction is going to be very much the same. You're going to be like, "Hello, how are you? Do you need any assistance?" Then it's kind of down to that person then to whether they want to disclose further that, "Oh, I need additional help," or the person may have a vision impairment but might have enough vision, they're perfectly comfortable to get around on their own. They may not need to disclose. So it's bad works. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like your questions around like disclosure, I suppose, to a degree, and you said do we regularly, some days I go into a place and I wouldn't disclose at all because I wouldn't need to. It might just be nice to have that little bit of independence and privacy for the day. But the way you probably know though, because those signs, because at the same time obviously you don't want people to not know that assistance is available, so you need to kind of know those subtle signs. And I agree entirely with what Will said about that kind of stopping. I do that a lot as well, walk into a place and we'd stop for a few minutes and we're like, where is she going? But I find if I am kind of moving independently like that and just kind of privately, I suppose, so to speak, I'd often go for the perimeter. Do you know what I mean? So I'd step in, I might look around, and then I'm going to go to the wall. You might see me or a thing that I do is you'll see me tapping at the corners. So if I'm passing by a corner, I'll just lightly lay my hand on it. Do you know? So it just gives me that kind of somatic context for where I am. So those are the little things, those kind of little touches, and just kind of following along the edges of stuff. And maybe, like I said earlier, I can often stand really there for 20 minutes looking at one page. Is she done looking at it yet? But I wouldn't haven't looked at, those are kind of the subtle cues. And I guess if I were in your situation, having to let somebody know, I'd probably just leave them alone. So just say hello to them like anybody else. Yeah. You don't know anybody's name when they walk into the museum, so you don't need to know ours to ask us.
If they can see you and you make eye contact and that they know that you're talking to them, you come in, and maybe if your vision is impaired to the extent that you can't see other people in the shop, that maybe you think that comment is directed to somebody else, or so it just we don't want to do the wrong thing.
Can help you. You may not realise it because I might be saying it to someone else.
Yeah, I suppose I just approach near them, and say hi, my name is Maeve, and if you need a hand with anything, don't be afraid to give a shout, and just walk away at that point, because a lot of the time, if I were to do that, to not ask for help or not tell anybody, it's because sometimes if you're being guided around, people can stand too close to you, and then that's impeding your vision and stuff. And like you've been consistently saying, that's going to be different for every single person, so we can't really give you a layout on that. But that might be a reason that somebody wouldn't disclose,
Okay.
for fear of too much help.
An obvious sign for some people who spot some people. If you think of Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder, you know, they shake their head from side to side. You know, there might be other things that some blind people will do.
I think as well the person who has the visual impairment has to kind of be, you know, be fair as well. And if they need help, say it or ask. You know, they have to think that you can. Like, I don't think you can tell by looking at me that I have visual impairment to the extent that I do.
A lot of it is really, you go through the normal bells and whistles that you'd always go through.
Yeah.
But the way I'm going to address it is, if you think that you've got somebody there who has some kind of an issue, and like say for example, two people come in, and one of them, you can see there's something odd about them, or there's something that it's clear that they have some kind of a disability, but you can't make out what it is. I would address that person equally. I would just say, if there's anything I can help you with, or are you here to visit the museum, or something like that, to start with the conversation, and that breaks down a lot of barriers straight away. So it's just doing the ordinary things, and if it's the case that you think there's something that needs to be asked, ask the question, but as long as it's not kind of in a demeaning sense or in a kind of patronising sense, you can't go wrong, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, you could also ask maybe something along the lines of, are you concerned about any particular aspect of navigating around the museum? Like I would say, just let's take it for granted that you've determined at this point that the person in front of you is visually impaired, through whatever means, but maybe earlier in the conversation, then you could just ask, are you concerned about any particular aspect, like I suppose you could maybe have information on the website, like, okay, we have certain areas in the museum that are very bright, and then the person, you would just ask a general question, have you any particular concerns? And then the person in front of you would kind of be honest, maybe on that kind of, well, I'm very light sensitive,